Now we're walking through further west on this slope. So we've dropped over the ridgetop from the hemlock red oak stand. And I've gone down the slope a bit to the west. And we're in more of a mixed forest. So this is, if we were classifying it, we would call it a mixed hardwood, softwood stand, or a mixed deciduous conifer stand. Right. Primarily still a lot of hemlocks. You can see the hemlocks again. But there are components of the northern hardwood forest. And actually, as I'm walking through here, you can kind of see there's a bit of a gradient. A little bit more, in this view, a little bit more hemlock to the right or to the south. And a little bit more hardwood in front of us and to the left, which is the north. And so that is often a kind of a pattern you will see in these mixed forests. A little bit more hardwood in one spot, a little bit more softwood in another spot. But generally, if we were flying over and taking aerial photos or looking at satellite imagery and trying to classify this, we wouldn't call it either hardwood or softwood. We'd likely call this a mixed deciduous coniferous forest. So some mature hemlocks, some younger hemlock. In front of us are red maples. There's some beech, so that single tree in front that's all lumpy and gnarly is an American beech that's been infected with the beech bark disease. There's some yellow birch right here, so kind of the classic yellow birch with the peeling bark in loose strips. And much of the understory component is either beech or hemlock or spruce. So we're at a high enough elevation that we're getting a mix of spruce, red spruce in this forest. And that is a tree that is on your list of species to know. Here's another dead tree of a dead maple. It's got some cavities in it. There's some ash. So as I'm walking down, I'm going to be walking towards this white ash tree. So ash is a component of these northern hardwood forests as well. And as we walk down slope, we're heading into kind of an intermittent stream. So there's a change in elevation of a couple hundred feet from the top of the ridge to this point at the bottom. And groundwater collects. The groundwater will flow downhill, and much of the year there's going to be an intermittent stream running at the base of this ridge. There's another white ash right next to me. So you can see the components of the northern hardwood forest as we're walking through. Here's some striped maple, again a common understory plant in the eastern forest. Grows well in the shade. Here's a big yellow birch growing down here at the bottom of the slope where it might be a little bit moister. Still has this exfoliating bark, although it's breaking up more as they tend to do when they become mature. A little bit of a hollow. And then as we walk down, and I'm going to go down, clementine's on the other side of the stream channel. But most of the time when I come out here, winter, spring, early summer, fall, this little stream will be flowing, and it flows and eventually drops off of the ridge. This is just an intermediate bench on the ridge. The ridge drops down another couple hundred feet to a more permanent stream. But this is fed by springs further up the hill and fed by groundwater, and normally is flowing. Sometimes it's only a couple of inches, sometimes it's deeper and faster. But again, topography makes a difference. There's probably a little bit more soil in this bottom where we are, right? So if you go back and reread the part of the Natural Communities book that talks about how soils are distributed on the landscape, one of the things, just like with natural communities, one of the things that affects soil distribution is topography. And so you have downslope movement, right? Erosion and water, so primarily waterborne erosion will move soils slowly down the slope. And so we might expect a bit of an accumulation of soil down here that's deeper than uphill. Of course, the stream channel will erode all of that, anything that makes it to the stream. But generally, we might think there's a little bit more soil in this position than on the top of the ridge, even though we're only, 200 meters or so away in horizontal distance. Here again is an example of the canopy gap. So this beech broke and was attacked by the fungus. You can see the fungus still growing on it, decaying it. It snapped off a couple of years ago, and it created a gap in the canopy along with that spruce that died, letting in sunlight to the forest floor. And so in this little patch of forest, we're seeing a flush of regeneration, of greenery, that we really don't see when we look elsewhere, except in other gaps in the canopy, like the one directly ahead of me, where another big tree had broken off and created a hole. Right, so in this gap, we're seeing American beech seedlings, but we're also seeing the striped maple. Somewhere in here I saw a birch or two. So we're seeing this flush of greenery in response to the increased amount of sunlight. If we were to come in here in the springtime, before the other leaves, before the trees leaf out, we might even see a variety of what are called spring ephemerals. So wildflowers that germinate and send up their flowers in the early spring, early to mid-spring, before the trees send their leaves out. So those spring ephemerals take advantage of the sunlight afforded to them in early to mid-spring and do their flowering and seed production before the hardwoods leaf out and take up all the sunlight. So that's an evolutionary response to living in a deciduous forest. They've evolved this pattern of early flowering and germination to take advantage of the full sunlight or near full sunlight conditions that they can get in from late March through early to mid-May. So late April, early May is really a great time to go out and look for all those spring wildflowers. Here's another canopy gap. Since it was so close, I thought I'd walk over. And again, you can see there was a big hemlock that broke kind of on the far side of these saplings. And again, we're looking kind of due south. So the sun is going to be moving from east to west in the southern sky. And so the angle of the sun is going to be behind that big